go, Brandon.
Hey friends, last week we had a lot of testimony in the U.S. Senate from people that were really pushing a lot of the anti-gun gun control measures out there. And it was a hard push. It was a methodical push, and it was a very calculated push, but it was not a very heartfelt push, because in most cases, these people were reading off of cue cards that they had been giving various bullet points from the people who were telling them, this is what you need to say. You may not have seen much in terms of the pro-gun, gun rights discussion where people spoke out against these anti-gun bills and pointed out that none of them will do anything. Lucretia is one of the people who spoke out against these anti-gun bills. Probably hadn't seen that, have you? I hadn't either. This interview had to be sent to me. The news media, if they were doing their jobs, would have shown you this already. I'm going to show you this. This is an incredibly powerful testimony from a person who has lived it and lives it now and is trying to send the message, and the news media is suppressing this message. Check this out.
Distinguished members of the committee, thank you for allowing me to be here today to address the violence in our country. My name is Lucretia Hughes Kluken. I have 4 children and 9 grandchildren. On the night of April the 2nd, 2016, my family got a phone call that would change our lives forever. My ex-husband answered the phone and let out a blood-curdling scream, a scream of pain from the depths of his soul. He screamed, he cried, he's gone, he is gone. Our 19-year-old son, Emmanuel, went to a party early that night. After we got the call, we was frantic. We called his phone, no one answered. We called even the police. I went to Facebook and I had to ask, is my son dead? I found out that he was shot point blank in the head and killed while playing dominoes. No one spoke up for weeks, and the killer was on the run. No one was going to snitch, but that is the street life. Words can't describe how hard it is to bury a child. I ache for anyone and all who have done the same. My son's death was a result of a criminal with an evil heart and a justice system failing to hold him accountable for the laws he had already broken. You see, a convicted felon killed my son with an illegally obtained gun. Our gun control lobbyists and politicians claim that their policies will save lives and reduce violence. Well, those policies did not save my son. The laws being discussed are already implemented in cities across this country. We have decades of evidence proving they do not work. St. Louis, New York, Chicago, Washington, Atlanta are gun control utopias, and they are plagued with the most violence. 10 more laws, 20 more laws, 1,000 more won't make what has already illegal more wrong or stop criminals from committing these crimes. And y'all are delusional if you think it's gonna keep us safe. I am a walking testimony of how the criminal justice system and the gun control laws, which is steeped in racism, by the way, have failed the Black community. By the age of 25, I had already went to 18 young Black men funerals at the age of 25. I have 1 Black man in jail, 1 Black man in the grave, and my young grandson gonna be raised without a father. And it's a curse on the Black community and everyone else's. Something has to change. Thoughts and prayers and calls for more gun control isn't enough. How about letting me defend myself from evil? You don't think that I'm capable and trustworthy to handle a firearm. You don't think that the Second Amendment doesn't apply to people that look like me? Who and you who would call for more gun controls are the same ones that are calling to defund the police. Who is supposed to protect us? We must prepare to be our own first responders to protect ourselves and our loved ones. I am a legal, law-abiding citizen, and I don't need the government to save me. I teach people how to use a firearm. I empower others to look at me to understand the Second Amendment is their right. I am a proud member of the DC Project, Women for Gun Rights. We believe that education is the key to safety, not ineffective legislation. We support meaningful solutions that will actually save lives. We support the Safe Student Act, H.R. 7415, which would immediately make schools safer. In hindsight, of Parkland, we saw failure of the government at every level failing the students. Students saw something and they said something, and the school did not act. Police were called to his residence over 30 times, and they did not act. And finally, the police did not go into their school that fateful day and failed to protect those kids. We need to secure our schools, and we gotta secure this building, or like y'all do. What's the difference? We call on Congress to ban gun-free zones, fund nonpartisan firearm education programs like Kids Safe Foundation and non-governmental mental health organizations like Hold My Guns. And in closing, I claim that nothing in these bills do anything to make us safer or address the mental health crisis in this country. Despite living with the heartache of losing my son on a daily basis, I believe it is our God-given right to defend ourselves from any act of violence. Making it more difficult or even more expensive for me and people that look like me and other law-abiding citizens will not make us safer. It will embolden the criminals. Gun owners are not the enemies, and these gun control policies are not the solution.
Now, one of the things that bothers me most of all in all of this is the way Democrats view people who they think should be their own supporters, and when they're not, they treat them and discard them like trash. You'll notice Democrat Senator Debbie Wasserman Schultz during this could not be bothered to give any real credibility to Lucretia, because Lucretia dared to question what their view is on the anti-gun, anti-Second Amendment view. Lucretia dared to step outside the box. Lucretia was supposed to be the person that supports the likes of Debbie Wasserman Schultz. And Debbie Wasserman Schultz was not happy that Lucretia had strayed from all the other Democrats. That really bothered me, guys. I don't mind telling you that bothered me. It bothered me enough that I had already been inspired by Lucretia's testimony, but now I wanted to talk to Lucretia, and I was lucky enough to do that. Here's my interview with Lucretia. Okay, guys, I got Lucretia here with me. Lucretia, tell me a little bit about yourself before we get into the story about your son.
I am just an ordinary patriot. I'm just an ordinary American citizen that really loves her God, her family, her country, and support President Donald J. Trump. I have 4 children and 9 grandchildren. So I guess you would say I'm the liberal and Democrat worst nightmare.
You know, speaking of that, you and I had a little conversation off camera a while ago, but you mentioned this epiphany or this realization of what your calling was 10 or 12 years ago. How would you say your where you stood politically, or at least ideologically 10 or 12 years ago versus where you are now?
Because, you know what, I had given up on politics when I was in my 20s. Like I said, I was a single mom living in the projects, It was Prince Hall Avenue in Spartanburg. And that's just the life that I live. I really didn't know much about politics, but I knew enough to look around in my own community and say, I'm sick of this crap. And hitting the floor and listening to gunshots. It was the rough side of town. It's called the urban community. So I decided to go to the Democratic Party because that's the way I voted. I didn't know anything differently. So when I decided to go up there to the Democratic Party and ask that day, because you have a core memory of something pivotal in your life that either changed it or it changed it. So 30 minutes in, and I'm saying, I'm a single mom, blah, blah, blah. I gave my story. I'm giving them the examples of what's going on over here. And they've told me point blank in my face, I didn't belong there. I didn't belong there. But I just attended 18 young funerals. And I said enough was enough. I didn't belong there. So what am I? Stuck in this project, stuck on welfare, stuck without a way out. But I wasn't raised that way because I was raised with a mother and a father. So I cannot have that as a point out or a cop out. So there was a woman that watches my show now. Her name is Miss Barbara. And I just remember she said, you bring your son to the bookmobile every week I'm here. She said, keep going and keep going. Yes, did it tear me down? It did. So when Barack Obama became, started running, he was black. Oh, that's all you heard was the whoop whoop. And I started falling into this, not knowing how to vet someone, not knowing, what politics truly was and how, this is not a popularity contest. What opened up my eyes with him and to really sit back and pay attention, it to be honest with you, was Neil Boris. It was Rush Limbaugh, because I was driving a truck, and that's all you had to do was listen. Coast to Coast, Art Bell, they made you sit up. Did they make you angry? Yeah. But that question went back to what you mad about. Once you do your own research and figure out what's really going on. So I had a party at my house, and I remember he stuttered over his oath of office. I remember that clear as day, and something in me said, sit back, watch. And then the next thing he did foul to me was sending back to Winston the bus. And then it just started trickling to the point that I started saying, he going, wait a minute, he going against pretty much the black community. He ain't doing jack for us. Wait a minute, he going against the veterans. We got veterans running out setting themselves on fire, and my son is thinking about going into the Air Force. Wait a minute, my dad is a Vietnam vet. My brother is a Marine. It started clicking to me that I wasn't raised like that. All that ideology and he was spitting out there, and the Beer Summit goes against everything. So I started really gravitating towards Tea Party, taxation without representation. I started reading the 5,000-year leap. And then there was an epiphany. It was a rally, the truckers, the bikers, and the veterans. I said, if I'm going to make a stand, and I'm going to really throw myself out there, then I'm going to throw it behind a worthy cause. And those three causes was the veterans, was the bikers, and was the truckers. And I started paying attention. But what was the icing on the cake that I knew that the Holy Spirit said, you made the right decision, and it was a validation, is when they booed God 3 times on worldwide TV. I am saved by the blood of Jesus Christ. To me, that reminded me so much of Peter before the cock crowed 3 times, the betrayal of Jesus Christ. And I want to hear, well done, my sister and my child. I don't want to go to hell with the rest of them.
That would be something that you've got to at least acknowledge when it happens, right?
You don't have no choice until you get beat down so bad. And you get beat down, and all you see is darkness and hope and doom and gloom. But if you look around in society, you see that right now. And I think that's what we're seeing across the nation of every ethnic group, every nationality, is people are finally fed up. They're being knocked to the floor. And once you hit that ground, once you're on your back, you only have one way to look, and that is up. And I'm sorry, only person that is above us right now is our God, which our country was founded on, and my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Keep looking at the sky. Sooner or later, one day, he's going to crack it.
Well,
it's Sunday. Let's have fun.
That's right. You make a good point. One thing that I think is a resounding thing amongst everybody, regardless of political affiliation, nationwide and worldwide, is that nobody wants to be a fool. And I think a lot of people will ignore the fact that they have been fooled for a long time. But boy, whenever you realize you've been fooled and you're okay to talk about it, we wake up pretty fast.
Even that, think about it this way. No, even Democrats don't want to be broke or broken. And our nation has been broken and broke ever since they stole our civil liberties away with this Event 203, and I call it the scam pandemic. You might want to take that out so you don't get knocked down off YouTube, but that right there that should have scared every citizen in America. And we gave up our civil liberties without one shot fired.
Yep.
Be prepared.
Well, look, I want to talk a little bit here in a minute about your testimony to Senate the other day, but one of the stories that you talked about, your testimony was strong because you talked about your son, and that was the centerpiece of how you kicked off what you talked about. If you don't mind, tell me a little bit about what happened to your son and what transpired after he actually was shot.
You know what? I always say my mess is my message, and no matter what, I can't go back and change that over. And I can't because I don't have a time machine. But there's so many people out there that does live the type of life, or in the neighborhoods that I used to live in. So some of them can relate, but I'm not going to drop my head in shame of how I lived my life, and I'm not going to be ashamed for who God had made me to be. So I told my story, and I told about my son and where I lived and how it made a very huge impact on my life. So that is a true story, and I will go head to head with anyone that has something to say about it. It made me who I am today.
You clearly had issues with the way the shooter himself, or the killer, I should say, was treated. Whatever ended up happening to the person who killed your son?
From what I'm understanding, because I saw this, and my daughter and my other kids, because he was the baby boy, they sent it to me and his friends after he had been on the run for about a week and a half. His friends got on Facebook and made a video pretty much putting it out there that if you do not turn yourself in, no matter where you go or who you're going to be around, they will hunt him down. It wasn't law enforcement because he went on the run. That is plainly stated. If you look at Statesville, North Carolina, type my son's name in, Emmanuel Teasley. All of this is public knowledge. So just what happened is that finally, after 2.5 weeks of being on the run, he turned himself in.
Okay.
He's already been sentenced. He's, like I said, one black man in the jail, one black man in the grave, and now one that's going to be raised without a father. That is a number that I did not want to have part of my life. So it is what it is.
Well, let's talk about gun laws. How do you see today's current gun laws? Are they enforced enough, and how do they affect the communities that you lived in?
You can get a gun anywhere. Come on, to me, that's what on the NBC. I told him that's a touchy situation, but if you want to talk about it, let's go there. Because one of my stepfathers was the founding member of the Black Panther Party in the 1970s. So, they always told me about the CIA, about, some of these neighborhoods in Bed-Stuy and Brooklyn. And, you could pop a trunk and all of a sudden there go guns all over the place, how they was pushing narcotics. You could talk about the, the industrial prison system. You could take it to rap music. I'm tired of these people acting like there's not evidence after evidence, compound, no matter how you look at it, how bad you twist it, from the censoring of the crack epidemic, it's out there. Mm-hmm. And we're just tired of it. So we wanted to take our nation back and our communities back. And they keep compiling all of these laws on us. So if you have over 20,000 laws at the federal level on the Second Amendment, why wouldn't you choose one of those 23,000 or 20,000 laws you have already implemented? Either take it off the books because it's not doing the job it's supposed to, or start giving us a clown show and a dog and pony show when you really ain't doing anything.
How was your message as far as your stance on gun rights? How is that accepted in your community where you are or where your family lives? Are you getting any pushback from any of your friends or family?
No, I live in Loganville, Georgia. We are a 2A sanctuary, baby. So we are 2A sanctuary. My sheriff don't play that stuff. He went down to the Capitol and said there will be no restrictions on 2A. It is so good that I'm on the outreach committee for the NRA, so I take my rights very, very seriously. And when then you got to think about the people that live in these blue areas that are liberal controlled cities, and then you look behind the scenes with the bail reform, or you look at the Soros-backed DAs, you look at the judges that are lax on crime, and they just allowing these people to perpetrate these violence. And then you have them, the big mantra, defund the police. treating our authority like there's no respect whatsoever, having a bullseye on their back. Either we're going to be our first responders and even protect the police if necessary and protect our homes, or we're going to have what Omar and Taliban and AOC and all the rest, Presley, shouting for the UN peacekeepers to come on our soil. I would rather go back to Red Dawn and shout Wolverines, and we give ourselves a secret nod before I would allow a foreign enemy or entity to tell us what we can do.
Well, Lucretia, that's strong, that's powerful, and I got to tell you, your testimony really it shook me to the core, and I think that a lot of the viewers out there are going to get a lot out of this. I've already shown the interview, or the testimony, I should say, and I can't tell you how much of a pleasure and how honored I am that you came on here to talk to me today. I definitely want to make sure that we help you get your message out there. We're going to make sure that we stay in contact with you, and anytime we can do anything to help you, we're definitely here to help you, and we'd love to have you back on to talk a little bit more in depth about some of the things you're doing. Guys, that's powerful. I'm going to be doing a lot more stuff with Lucretia in the future. I was really inspired by what she said, how she handled herself. She was essentially outnumbered more than anything. This lady walked into the lion's den and she did her business, and she was unwavering in how she did it. That is an inspiration to all of us, because in most cases we're talking in echo chambers. In most cases we're talking amongst groups of people who already agree with everything we have to say. So it's not very intimidating. She walked in there unintimidated, said what she had to say in spite of people dogging her and acting like she was trash. I would like to make sure you guys go take a look at fallbackproductionsstudio.com. That's Lucretia's studio. And also go to www.etsy.com/shop/fallbackusa. I'll put all that on screen. The reason why I want you guys to do that is because nobody is funding Lucretia, as you can imagine. Nobody is writing her bills for her, or footing her bills for her, I should say. If she were anti-gun, she would be a rich lady right now, because all these anti-gun movements that make millions and millions of dollars would be funding her and paying all of her bills, because they would love to have somebody like her speaking on their behalf. Because she's not, nobody is supporting her. Lucretia pays her own bills through her Etsy account and all the merchandise that she moves. So I would encourage you guys to go out there in order to support Lucretia and her efforts to try to get the word out the way she's trying to put it out. Go visit her Etsy store, buy some merchandise. I give you my word, I will do that. You will see me wearing some of her merchandise very soon. But yeah, please go out and support that. She is funding her own efforts to do all of this, and anything you can do is definitely going to be a huge help. Thanks, guys. And thank you, Lucretia, for joining me. Truly an inspiration, and thank you for getting your message out there in spite of the people who are speaking out against you.
Let's go, Brandon.